you ever given up on a knife company so completely, so thoroughly, and then a new knife model came out, or maybe several new knife models came out and changed your mind? How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And if you would be so kind, head on down to the comment section and let me know, has that ever happened to you? Or has everything played out like you thought it would? While you're down there, make sure to smack up that like button. Let YouTube know that you enjoy this kind of content. Today we're talking about this guy, the Kershaw Launch 15, a out the side automatic switchblade in CPM Magnacut, and yes, it is made right here in the great US of A. Now, I've already done a regular review of this knife, and if that's what you're looking for, great, I will link it up above. However, if you crave context, if you crave the details, and you want to know how this knife stacks up against other knives on our leaderboard, well, you're in luck, because today is another episode of Grail or Garbage, the series where I systematically and categorically rank and review knives just like this Kershaw Launch 15 to give you the context you need to decide. Does this knife deserve a spot in your pocket, or does it deserve a spot in the trash can? It's a little harsh, but it could happen. Here's how it works. Grail or Garbage consists of 5 categories. Those categories are materials, ergonomics, fidget factor, the lock, and then finally fit and finish. We will score it 1 to 10 in each category. By the time we're done, we will add up all of those points and then place it on our leaderboard so that you can see how it ranks against other knives that we've reviewed so far. By the time we're done, we will know, is the Kershaw Launch 15 a grail or is it garbage? Alright guys, so I'm really pumped about this one. This is the Kershaw Launch 15, and I'm finally getting a chance to rank it. And I love ranking these because it gives me the time to really talk about why I believe what I believe. The thing is that Kershaw has been killing it this year, and I have not been a huge fan of Kershaw for a long time because it just kind of felt like they were dropping the ball design-wise. They weren't giving us anything new, and the designs were just kind of outdated, and they weren't doing anything for me. They weren't doing anything for me, okay? There are some American manufacturers out there that can afford to do that. We're talking like the Chris Reeves of the world and the Strider and, you know, even Medford, to name a few. But Kershaw, being a more budget-friendly brand, historically speaking, can't really afford to do that because budget knives and more affordable, more attainable knives have come a long ways in the last 3 years. If you have a good example of budget knives or more affordable knives coming a long ways in the last 3 years, point it out in the comments section down below, because companies have been innovating, and up until this year, it didn't really feel like Kershaw was doing that. Here we are in 2023, and thankfully, I am singing a different tune. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to rank this bad boy. So let's start off with the first one. The first category is, of course, materials. What's it made out of? And, you know, more importantly, how much does it cost? Is it a fair price? Is it affordable? Is it attainable? Does it make sense? And I gotta say, absolutely. Here's what I mean. The handle scales are aluminum. It has a really nice, soft micarta inlay, which is really nice as well. Reversible stamped steel pocket clip, which is deep carry. It's also got a matching micarta backspacer, which they really, honestly, they didn't have to do that. They really didn't have to do that, but it is a nice, classy addition, and I really enjoy it. It's an easy way to tell if the blade is lined up, and, you know, furthermore, it just looks good. It looks good. The blade is the star of the show. This blade is CPM Magnacut. Now, the big question mark here is, what's the heat treat? And I say what's the heat treat because when it comes to Magnacut, it has a protocol from the manufacturer of anywhere in the realm of 60 to 64. Most manufacturer protocols on knife steels are somewhere in the plus or minus, 1 or 2 range. They're not typically 4. 60 to 64 is a large range. And to give you an idea, Magnacut at 60 HRC is going to perform a hell of a lot like D2 steel. And that's not what we want. Vice versa, you get Magnacut upwards of 63, 64, which is what Laren Thomas, the creator of the steel, is looking for, and you're getting a lot more. You're getting an amazing edge retention. You're also getting a really, really good rust resistance, and that's something that is quite impressive. Now, we don't know what the HRC is, but I will say this: there is a rumor. And it is a rumor, I have not verified this, but I heard a rumor that Hogue is making the Launch 15. And if that's true, their Magnacut protocols have them more in the 63 to 64 range, which would be absolutely amazing. But I cannot verify that. And Kershaw has not told us exactly what their heat treat protocol is for their Magnacut. So we don't know. I can't give it a higher score based on a rumor, but I would be really, really stoked if I found out that rumor is true and Hogue was making the Launch 15. So I'll leave it at that. Ultimately, this knife costs about $145 from Blade Ops, and I will link it in the description and in the pinned comment down below in case you want to pick one up. You don't have to, but it does help the channel if you do. And if you're planning on buying one anyways, it would mean a lot if you use my link. With all of that being said, I'm very impressed with the materials at this price point. There's only a few knives on the market that are not only American made, but also give you CPM Magnacut. And so for those reasons, it's going to be getting a 9 out of 10 for materials. Very, very, very impressive for materials. Next up, we got to talk about the ergonomics. How does it feel in the hand? Are there any hot spots? Is it easy to choke up on? Can you reverse the grip? Is it comfortable in the hand? Do you have enough handles? Does the pocket clip get in the way? All of these things matter because if it's uncomfortable to hold, you're not going to want to hold it, right? Well, this design is actually really good. The aluminum handle scales feel awesome, and that micarta inlay is very soft, and it also really aids in making sure that you have a comfortable grip. Furthermore, you do have a nice amount of jimping here on the spine of the blade. It's about the size and length of a thumb, which is perfect. And while you don't necessarily have a perfect spot to choke up here, you can kind of trigger pull it and get a nice controlled grip like that. If you want to do a reverse grip, you can do that really well. I have large to extra large size hands, and it fits full 4-finger grip, no problem. Furthermore, if you look at the back here, you'll see that you have jimping on the very butt of that handle, which is nice because if you do use this in a reverse grip, not only can you cap off that handle for extra retention, but it's very grippy, and so your thumb acts as a tactile steerer of the boat, I guess you could say. Overall, it is quite good. Even the backspacer actually lends to the ergonomics because it's a spot where the palm of your hand won't sink in between the two handle scales, which happens on knives that don't have backspacers. So that definitely helps. Is it the most amazing, most comfortable knife that I've ever held? No. But it is really good. It's good enough where it's going to be getting an 8 out of 10 for ergonomics. Next up is one of my favorite categories. We got to talk about the Fidget Factor. And before we go too deep into this, if you haven't seen Grail or Garbage before, Fidget Factor has a lot to do with things like the action. It has to do with how much do you want to carry it. It's not just about deployment options, and thank God, because if it was, it would be failing very sorely. This knife is very snappy. That button is fun to hit, okay? Press the button, blade goes bang. and it comes out with force. You can definitely feel it. There is a bit of a recoil on it even. You see that the handle scale shake when I release that blade? It comes out with a good amount of force. Is it as snappy as a ProTech? No, but it is really, really good. And it's also very well balanced. The balanced nature of the knife makes it really a joy to handle. I have absolutely no complaints on that front. The knife is not a small knife by any stretch, but it is comfortable to hold on to, and it's easy to actuate and to close it and to open it and to close it. I honestly feel like I could do that for hours. So it is fairly fidget friendly. It is not the most fidget friendly knife I've ever encountered, but it is actually pretty decent. It's going to be getting a 7 out of 10 for Fidget Factor. Second to last is the lock. How does the lock perform? Well, I gotta tell you, the lock performs really well. There is absolutely zero play up, down, left, or right. There is no lock rock, and I wouldn't expect it. You don't typically find lock rock in button locks. And yes, this is a button lock, but it is an automatic button lock, which means that not only do you have the plunge lock there, but you also have the spring that aids in keeping this open and tight. And so you will find that there is absolutely no wiggle there. When you close the blade, you'll see that everything lines up perfectly. That backspacer is really nice for giving you a reference point for where center is, and this blade is perfectly centered. It's quite good. The lock is still a button lock, however, and it's a button lock. I don't trust button locks as far as overall strength, but I do feel like I could trust this one more than I would a normal non-automatic button lock knife. For those reasons, it's going to be getting a 7 out of 10 for the lock. And lastly, this is recently my most favorite topic, which is fit and finish, which is not just about how well it's manufactured, but also about how well executed the design is overall. I haven't really been impressed with the Kershaw launch series in the past. They didn't do it for me visually, and they didn't necessarily do it for me in other ways either. This is the first Kershaw launch series knife that I actually feel really excited about. Yes, it's an automatic knife, and some people find that gimmicky, but I actually really like that. It's like it's going at ProTech and saying, hey, compete with us now, and let's have the customers win. The blade shape is really cool. It's this spear point, almost dagger style blade with a faux edge. It's not even necessarily a faux edge, I shouldn't call it that, but when you look at it like this, it does look like the secondary swedge here could be an actual edge, but it's not. It is in fact a swedge, which does help with the cutting relief. I like that they added the jimping on the back there. That lends to the thought that this is a knife that was meant to be used, because if you don't have jimping there, yes, it could help with the design flow, but it doesn't help it, in a real life situation. And in this case, it does. And you can tell because it's not just a cursory amount of jimping, that is a full thumb length worth of jimping, and it's useful jimping. You can feel it. It's not too deep. It's not too shallow. It's the perfect amount. And I really like that. Speaking of jimping, I'll mention this again. The fact that there is jimping on the butt end of those handle scales is phenomenal. I wish that more manufacturers would do that. That is great. Another feather in the cap is the balance. As I mentioned in previous categories, the balance is really, really good. The balance is right there underneath the button. Things like balance matter when you are looking at knives and when you're handling knives all the time, so it matters to me. The pocket clip is another thing that I'm a really big fan of because it's deep carry, but it's not overdoing it. It's not super long. A lot of companies would make this clip go down to here, and that would have just honestly been too much. In this case, it's not. Now, I do wish that they had used flat screws for that clip, because while this isn't going to be an issue on most jeans, because you do have a lot of headroom there in the pocket clip, If you wear Carhartts, I could actually see that getting snagged on the lip of your pants. But thank God not everybody wears Carhartts. And so for most people, it's not going to be an issue. And for those who it will be, you can actually replace those pocket clip screws fairly easily with some flathead ones if it's going to be an issue. And lastly, on the pocket clip, it is reversible, which is a really nice thing to see. Now, as far as the manufacturing is concerned, there are no extra sharp edges that shouldn't be sharp. The button is well made, and what I mean is you cannot deploy this on accident. You just can't. You can't deploy it with the flat of your thumb. It's going to be safe in your pocket. You have to intentionally press on that button, and when you do, the blade goes bang, and gosh, I love that. Furthermore, the micarta inlay is really, really good. There is hardly no space. It's almost seamless, and on a $145 knife, that's not necessarily something that you see a lot, because at that price point you could get away with a little bit sloppier of an inlay, but they didn't do that. And guys, did I mention? Yeah, it's made right here in the United States. Knives like this are important because even if you don't like this knife specifically, this is a piece that's pushing American manufacturing. I already mentioned that I did hear a rumor that this knife and the live wire were made by Hogue, but keep in mind that is just a rumor. I cannot confirm or deny it because it's a rumor. I really, really hope that that's true for the sake of this Magnacut blade, because we have no idea what the heat treat is. If it's made by Hogue, it would be somewhere in the 62 to 64 range. If it's not, who knows? It could be 60 HRC, which would be a bit of a bummer, but at this price point, I would still actually accept that. Overall, I'm impressed with the design of this knife. It's a beautiful looking knife. And I think that for someone that's been looking to experience Magnacut, this is an excellent opportunity to do that without spending $400, $500, $600. So with all of that in mind, fit and finish is pretty dang good. It's going to be getting an 8 out of 10 for fit and finish. So let's go ahead and recap, shall we? For materials, it got a 9. For ergonomics, it got an 8. For Fidget Factor, it got a 7. For the lock, it got a 7. And for fit and finish, it got an 8. Now, if you add up all of those points, you're going to get a grand total of 39. 39 out of 50 is a high recommend. And who could I highly recommend this to? Just about damn near everybody who is interested in Magnacut, American made, switchblades, knives that just look cool. I mean, shoot, I could highly recommend this to just about anybody at that price point, because I think that it's a very high quality knife. And this is a knife that I'm excited about because it gives me something to root for with American knife making. And that makes me, pretty proud. No matter what your thoughts on Kershaw are, I would urge you to at least handle one of these and make up your own decision. I really like this one, but you let me know. Do you think my score was fair? Have you already bought one of these? Are you planning on buying one of these? And guys, if you found this ranking helpful and you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, and help get the word out, because I think more people need to know about this knife. That's all I've got for you today. Guys, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you know what to do. And again, if you want to see more awesome knife content, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.